What do the games Don't Escape and Deep Sleep have in common? Both are chunky pixel-style point-and-click adventure game trilogies with unique hooks and genre twists crafted by acclaimed Flash developer Scriptwelder. But beyond all that, they share in having one of the most intricate stories ever known in the Flash gaming world, and also share a layered and complex hidden storyline just beneath the surface that would have taken so much foresight and careful planning that it rivals many major studio releases to this day. I'm here to go fully in-depth on what I'm calling the Scriptwelder Multiverse. How's it going, guys? My name is Graham and welcome to Two Left Thumbs. Today I want to talk to you about a game and series that I had the pleasure of playing very recently here on the channel. On March 11th, we had the release of Don't Escape 4 Days to Survive. This is an older video from about 2 years ago. I wanted to move it over to the second channel. I'm giving it a few tweaks and updates. A few people in the comments caught a couple of things I missed. I will be lacing those into the video, as well as updating the language to reflect the change of the game's name from Don't Escape 4 Days in a Wasteland to Don't Escape 4 Days to Survive. There were some legal issues, it was solved amicably, so this is the new title of the game. This game comes from Scriptwelder and Armor Games and is the follow-up to 3 free online Flash games, Don't Escape 1 through 3. The game is so spectacular and so incredibly well done. It's a point-and-click adventure game with kind of escape room survival twists put on it. It's pretty unique. The design is just top-notch. There's replayability, which is something that is never in point-and-click adventure games. The characters are very sympathetic and the consequences of your actions are real. I'll have a link to the Steam page down below if you want to check it out for yourself, or you could watch the full playthrough we did here on the channel. Playing this game or watching it is probably going to be pretty important to understanding this video. We're going a little deep into things here. And what you may have noticed if you've seen or played the game yourself is that there's clearly a lot more going on than a simple post-apocalyptic adventure. This is even more apparent with a second playthrough of the game unlocking a true ending. Fair warning, this is going to be a very spoiler-heavy video. Being familiar with the games will give you a better appreciation for what I'm about to talk about, but I am going to kind of walk through things pretty step by step, because I think it's going to be very important for laying out the larger picture here. We're going to lace together both the Don't Escape series as well as Scriptwelder's Deep Sleep series. So if you're ready for that, strap yourselves in and sit back while I explain these games, the Shadow People, Sidereal Plexus, and more as we construct this entire Scriptwelder multiverse. There's a lot of pieces to the puzzle here, so I'm going to attempt to build them in a logical order that ties together at the end. So as you're listening, please bear with me if you think I've overlooked something initially. Chances are I'm going to bring it up later. First, I want to give a quick refresher of Don't Escape 1, 2, and 3. Along with 4, they're all conceptually similar, but very thematically different. The idea of Don't Escape is kind of like a reverse escape room. You're fortifying a room to either keep yourself in or others out, rather than disassembling a room and trying to escape it yourself. In Don't Escape 1, you're in a shack in the middle of the woods, the victim of a witch's curse. Tonight is the full moon and you will turn into a werewolf. Not an ideal situation. You really don't want to kill the villagers. You're going to try and reinforce this shelter and tie yourself up and subdue yourself in any way possible to make sure you don't escape that room when the full moon hits. In Don't Escape 2, there is a bit of a zombie apocalypse going on. This is more of the virus-style zombie, more so than just fully reanimated corpse. You know the zombies are coming and you're stuck in a shack with your friend who is recently bit. You're going to want to do what you can to keep yourself safe, and safe from all possible zombie threats. Don't Escape 2 is the first time that there's a time mechanic. Certain actions you perform are going to eat up your time. It's a precious resource and you have to make sure things are taken care of before the end of the day. This is something that carries on for the next few games. In Don't Escape 3, we are an astronaut on a spaceship. There's also a bit of a murder mystery going on here. We also want to make sure the suspected murderer is unable to leave the ship. Your life support systems are also damaged, but a distress signal was received and someone is on their way to help you. You need to stay alive and make sure you're ready to be rescued. Now, a big part of Don't Escape 3 is this crazy crystal that's infecting things and taking over the ship. Scriptwelder actually has another game, Primal Sands, which isn't a point and click and seemingly doesn't have anything to do with Don't Escape. But you control a little drone on a foreign planet collecting crystals. These crystals are very valuable, you're getting as many as you can to take back with you. The crystals themselves are little diamonds, which actually tend to appear throughout the Deep Sleep series, which I'll get into more in just a minute. Very cool games, just conceptually so creative, with maybe small little references in between the games, but no strong through line to suggest they're connected in any way. Now, we're introduced to Don't Escape 4, a game that wisely and creatively isolates itself through its title. Simply move that colon around and it goes from being a standalone game to a sequel. That's very cool. People who are new to the series can jump in here and still have a very enjoyable experience. But there's more to it waiting to be unraveled. Going from a series of free 20 to 30 minute games to something that on a first playthrough will take you 6 to 8 hours is a pretty big jump up. There's a lot more to think through, the story is much more interesting, and the puzzles are more complex. It's easy to sum up a 20-minute game in a few sentences. I'm going to try and be very succinct with Don't Escape 4. Our protagonist, David, wakes up alone in a wasteland. Or, a nondescript post-apocalyptic setting. The world is ending in 4 days as a result of the moon blowing up. The moon itself is now off of its orbit and hurtling towards Earth, resulting in an ultimate doomsday in 96 hours. Really, across the 4 days, you're playing 4 isolated games. Each night plays out very differently. The blast that destroyed the moon actually caused massive issues of radiation, extremely fluctuating climates, creature mutations on Earth, and now raiding bandit crews roaming the wasteland, each individually threatening to wipe out humankind well before the moon actually makes impact. We make a few friends along the way, we do our best to survive, all in an effort to locate a suspected rocket housed in a nearby secret facility. We need to make it there by the 4th day to escape. The mission is risky and the end game unclear, but what we know for sure is we need to take that rocket off of Earth in order to stand any hope of surviving. Things are a little weird here. We got werewolves, zombies, astronauts. What the hell does any of it have to do with a wasteland? Oh, patience, young one. All will be revealed in time. Starting in Don't Escape 2, we find the first thing that uses the term Sidereal Plexus. It's not very fully explored here. There's simply a book on the shelf labeled Sidereal Plexus Inc. We begin to see Sidereal Plexus in a much more prominent fashion in Don't Escape 3. The datapad that we use to navigate everything throughout the game is a product of Sidereal Plexus. We could probably infer that the entire spaceship is a product of this company, but there's not a lot of formal evidence to go off of here. It's in Don't Escape 4 that this company plays a critically important role. They show up at basically every corner of the game and are instrumental to the plot. This company seemingly does it all. They feel like a weird blend of everything that Elon Musk does, with more of an ominous Skynet style vibe going on. This game takes place in 1996, yet there's technology that we would never even dream of. Pressure-activated pads that can cool an entire room, frequency devices that will chase away insects, storm-chasing triangulation devices that will eliminate inclement weather in an area. They're also a company that has missions traveling to the moon to mine helium-3, as well as a division that helps coma patients. They're all over the map, they have their fingers in many different pots. It's a lot of weird anachronistic technology that doesn't make a lot of sense. We see more innocuous occurrences of the company in Scriptwelder's simulation game, Excavate. The characters there aren't mining anything crazy like crystals. This appears to be a university side project, with Sidereal Plexus Inc. simply being named in the contacts section of a team member. Sidereal Plexus kind of becomes the heart of a lot of what I'm talking about here, but I want to step away from it for just a second, and we'll circle back. Seemingly unrelated are the 3 Deep Sleep games that Scriptwelder made. Deep Sleep, Deeper Sleep, and Deepest Sleep. Interestingly, Deep Sleep is actually the first of any of these games that Scriptwelder made. They're a series of haunting, more horror-focused games taking place in a dreamscape. Within it, we encounter these ominous dark beings with bright eyes, which starting in Deeper Sleep are referred to as shadow people or night folk. In this series, you're navigating these deep, lucid dreams, and these beings will only arrive once the player realizes they're dreaming. Then the night folk begin to stalk them and will kill you if they ever catch you. Within the world of these games, we also meet travelers, other real people who have apparently entered this deep sleep. It becomes an interconnected state of lucid dreaming that appears to bridge the gap between people's minds. Cool in theory, but it can warp your mind given enough time, evidenced by a few encounters with people who have been there maybe a bit too long. There's also an interesting persistence to this world, where people appear to be able to leave themselves notes that they can then find if they ever return to the deep sleep, even if the user doesn't seem to remember writing it for themselves, remaining as a token to lost memories. There's a weird disconnect here. People within the deep sleep can encounter others who are also in that deep sleep, but when you come out of it, you yourself might not even remember having been in it at all. Within deeper sleep, we also find a series of 15 notes that when pieced together give us a little bit of lore of the shadow people. I first encountered this phenomenon in the early 80s, but it would seem they have existed since the dawn of the human race. Commonly known as the night folk or shadow people, they live in the realm of dreams, but desperately want to get to our realm by possessing vulnerable, unoccupied bodies. As long as you don't know that you're dreaming, you are safe. They attack when they sense a mind detached from the body, which sometimes happens during comas, but much more often during out-of-body experiences and lucid dreaming. We now have a name for these threats, we know their motive is to possess your body, and that you're vulnerable when you're in a coma, out of body, or lucid dreaming. So being in one of these deep sleeps is when you're at risk. People who are paying extra close attention may have already picked up on the fact that comas have come up multiple times in this video. That will be explained more later. Instead, I have another connection between the Deep Sleep and Don't Escape series that I would like to draw first. As you'll see throughout the video, even though this is one of the most straightforward connections, it probably leaves more questions than it does answers. In the first game, Deep Sleep, there's these peculiar scrawlings referring to Cody, claiming that he is lost without his plushy tiger. It's very cool because with it being the first game of any of these, it does highlight a lot of foresight on Scriptwelder's part that he knew there was something he wanted to do with this. In the next game, Deeper Sleep, there is a secret ending that is obtained by first finding a plushy tiger and then placing it on a bed labeled Cody in a room full of bunks. This is an extra action, you don't have to do it to finish the game, but if you do, once the game is completed and we've exited the Deep Sleep, we see a newspaper clipping explaining that a 9-year-old boy named Cody miraculously awoke from a coma. A strange occurrence to be sure. We suddenly have a situation that highlights that our actions within the Deep Sleep can have an effect on the outside world. The very interesting thing here is that on the second day of 4 Days to Survive, we meet a 10-year-old boy named Cody, 1 year older than the Cody named in Deep Sleep, assuming they are one and the same, an orphan who tells us about his lost plushy tiger. And with 4 Days to Survive taking place in 1996, we've seemingly placed Deeper Sleep somewhere in 1995 or 96, depending when Cody's birthday is. Now, at first, this could be viewed as simply a cute reference with no real bearing on the story, but through a deeper examination of Sidereal Plexus and the world of Don't Escape 4, the pieces begin to fit together. Dreams are also critically important across both games. Every night, David has a dream that ends with him being woken up by being murdered in some grisly fashion. Each time David wakes up from one of these dreams, it ends up being quite prophetic, meaning that to an extent his dreams come true the following day. Locusts, giant spiders, toxic gas, bandits burst through the window, and then that is the challenge you have to face the following day. David isn't the only one who's having these predictive dreams. Throughout the adventure, we also pair up with Kate and Barry. How I mentioned before that the end goal of the game is to make it to a supposed base with a supposed spaceship, we're all very much going off of a hunch based on dreams that Kate has been having. It's uncertain whether or not Cody is saying this just to fit in, just to joke around because he's a kid, but he claims to have had a dream about zombies attacking him the following day. This very much seems to be a callback to Don't Escape 2 with the zombie scenario. Now, there are several pieces of literature that can be found scattered throughout the game. One of these is a newspaper article simply explaining the fact that the moon had exploded the day prior on March 11th, 1996, with people wildly speculating and largely being at a loss of what actually happened. As a fun little tie-in, the full Don't Escape 4 was released on March 11th. Next, we can find a pamphlet for Sidereal Plexus detailing their new sleeper clinic. It's simple and short and boasts that it can help your loved ones who have fallen into a coma. Very suspiciously, Sidereal isn't asking for any money for this service. They claim to simply care, have resources, and want to help. At the end of this write-up, Sidereal themselves actually refer to a coma as a long, calm, deep sleep. Now within Barry's house we find a book based on the mysticism of dreams, which has a moon on the front cover, which, thematically with dreams makes a lot of sense, but kind of also becomes a recurring motif going back to the full moon of Don't Escape 1 and the shattered moon of number 4. All things lunar seem to be quite important to this universe. While this book may seem a little hippy-dippy to some, it is quite important to what we're seeing in this game, so I do want to actually go over this one. Recurring nightmares are often considered to be something more than just a dream. There are more than several documented cases of nightmares actually coming true, which suggests that they can be treated as sort of warnings. A prophetic dream doesn't have to perfectly come to fruition. More often than not, the dream is a metaphor. Pretty damn on the nose for the way that David has been perceiving his dreams lately. A projection of the unconscious mind that has come in contact with information about events that are yet to happen. How is it possible, one may ask? This question remains unanswered. We live in a world ruled by science and dominated by technology, yet there are some mystical things lying underneath the veil of reality that control our lives to a degree much higher than you, dear reader, could ever imagine. Whatever the case may be, remember that dreams are more than they seem. Just like not understanding physics doesn't make it less real, the fact that we don't fully comprehend dreams does not render them irrelevant. This will all make much more sense down the line. But you should be starting to see the connections here, the mysticism of dreams, David being able to predict things through his dreams, the fact that the entire Deep Sleep series is based in a dream world, the supposed importance of comas, out-of-body experiences, and lucid dreams. Some of this is really starting to come together. We eventually end up in the Sidereal Plexus office building, in which we find a confidential note detailing the plans for an escape. Basically, it's a contingency plan that Sidereal knows eventually things are going to go belly up, and they're going to save everyone who's important to the company under those circumstances. Seemingly, they know more than they're letting on to the general public. We eventually gain access to one of Sidereal Plexus's computers and can rifle through their emails. This reveals some very specific, very peculiar information. One of the emails titled Visitors. Here is a list of people visiting from World SP-4, presumably Sidereal Plexus-4. We have the Deputy Director of an outpost, a Geologist, Cosmologist, and Crystallographist, and one more to run security. Obviously, visiting the moon would require someone who specializes in geology and cosmology, but his other mouthful of a title hints at the return of the crystals from Don't Escape 3 and Primal Sands, but are either absent or only marginally important in other games. But they reappear here, rearing their head for further investigation. And seeing as we know the outcome of Don't Escape 3, I would say it's not a very wise pursuit. There is a compliance email that has an attached report document that we cannot open, but it does include a URL for www.siderealplexus.com, which says to use your login to proceed. This character very helpfully left us his username and password attached to his computer, QWERT for the username and admin1 for the password. This is a real website and you can actually go visit it for a lot of cool extra details. Don't worry, we will go through everything there quite shortly. Yet more details about the fact that they were definitely involved with the incident on the moon, and that employees are required to deny involvement. All of this coming to the point that the company actually started offing individuals who were leaking information about what happened. Yeah, Sidereal Plexus might not be the helpful, altruistic company they make themselves out to be. Inside the restaurant, we find one of a few weekly conspiracy magazines, including the headline, "Government Lying to Us, Sidereal Plexus Hoax." This specifically targets the coma clinic that we saw before. I'm going to try and paraphrase things here a little bit because it is a little wordy. Is it a real, legit clinic for people in a prolonged comatose state, or perhaps it's something much more sinister than that? A company that's already done so much, this doesn't seem to be a cash grab. It's a clinic for people in comas. If you or a loved one had the misfortune of falling into a coma, you might want professional care. Usually this kind of deal is super expensive. This clinic, however, is dirt cheap. Maybe it's a PR stunt, but we don't believe that that's the case. As we all know, the truth is always hidden much deeper. An idea that played a significant role in the Deep Sleep series, going deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole to find the truth. Some families that decide to use the clinic report seeing their loved ones in public walking around as if nothing had happened. When approached, they don't even recognize their family members, displaying totally different alien behavior. While the wake-up rate of people in comas is low in general, the reports of coma patients behaving like completely different people is unheard of. Perhaps there's scientific experimentation? Brainwashing is one option? But we at the Weekly Conspiracy have another possible and chilling solution. Sidereal Plexus is working on some sort of mind transfer technology. Now there's kind of a running joke going on here that normally something called the Weekly Conspiracy is going to be a bit of a crackpot article, more worth a laugh than anything else. Yet for whatever reason, this group that runs this magazine is pretty much consistently always directly on the nose. They're not doing this for people's well-being, they're using them as vessels. They go on to say it's all speculative and they have no real proof, but they're closer to the truth than they probably realize. In our first playthrough of Don't Escape 4, we eventually find a floppy disk. Why does it feel so familiar and important at the same time? We can find a note from Jonathan Sampling, the same guy who's the geologist and all his other qualifications. They have their chances of success right up to about 89%, which is presumably whatever it is they were about to try to do on the moon that went catastrophically wrong. At this moment, we do not have enough information about the crystals, and we're in possession of a very small amount. They need more if they want their expeditions to continue. This is more important than the existence of one world. Even in the event of a failure, we would gain a huge amount of information that would allow us to increase the safety of the procedure in the future. SP-100009 is expendable. Now we've also heard about visitors coming from SP-4. We're now starting to get a sense of the fact that there are thousands or tens or hundreds of thousands of these SP allotments. At the construction site, there is actually another weekly conspiracy. They mentioned that the previous issue was the one where they talked about the mind transferring technology, but the larger question they pose here is why did they have such advanced technology in the first place? Together with all their other advancements in space exploration, energy, and computers. In general, why are they the company that's the first to everything in every field? Even with the best engineers in the world, that doesn't explain all of these amazing, life-altering breakthroughs. Computing powers are tripling beyond the predicted rate. This defies logic and leads to an obvious conclusion. Aliens. We believe Sidereal Plexus has been in contact with extraterrestrial beings since its founding. When you think about it, it's been right in front of us the entire time. Sidereal, as in stellar or astral. Pretty solid proof the technology wasn't created on this planet. Whether by allowing alien spaceships to land in their secret facilities or by opening portals to other universes, they are importing this technology from another world. And they question what is the price you pay for that sort of knowledge. Guys, they need to give this journalist from the Weekly Conspiracy a major promotion. Going back just a short couple minutes and building off of this journalist's theory, on a second playthrough of the game, the note actually changes. You're on a different SP world. Sorry to keep posing so many little teases like this, but the fact that different playthroughs are so different will be explained down the line. Just quickly, thank you guys for bearing with me thus far. Let's keep going, stay strong. Let's go back and consult that Sidereal Plexus website for a little bit more information on their technologies and advancements. Siderealplexus.com is a plucky little late 90s website. There's not a lot to it. We do learn through here that it was founded in 1992 and that they have a lot of things on the go. Starting in 95, Sidereal Plexus started sending people to the moon, constructing 2 separate lunar bases. One of these is a research facility conducting a variety of experiments, and the other one is a geology and mining facility. On the website, they highlight the fact that they're responsible for 70% of recent technological discoveries, and they highlight several different ones that we encounter in the game. The weather drone, heat absorber tile, Sidereal Connect, their internet provider, storm catcher, sleeper clinic, and sonic repellent device. When logging into the website, using the username and password that was attached to that computer of Douglas Courtney, we're able to find more confidential information that's hidden here. Going chronologically from the beginning, we hear of the top secret UEFS Horizon report from Outpost SP1, but unfortunately this one was deleted. SP1 would likely be whichever universe was the first to harness this technology, although that might not necessarily be this world. Presumably one of the first things Sidereal nailed down was communicating across the numerous worlds to further their goals. Honestly, considering how often the Weekly Conspiracy was right, there's a chance that that SP1 world had some early contact with an alien extraterrestrial life form, and that was what set all of this in motion. We can't really rule it out, even if it's coming from the Weekly Conspiracy. And while possibly true, they likely had visitors not from this world, it is seemingly more likely that they are instead not from this universe. Rather than some completely unknown origin or species, it appears to be humans sharing this technology with ourselves across universes. Maybe some random civilization that had early contact with the crystals, who knows how long ago? And maybe that first contact was aliens. After all, the night folk have supposedly been wandering our dreams since the dawn of time. But this traveling also appears to be time and space, especially when we have things like the Traveler in 400 years. It all starts to become a bit much to try and comprehend and synthesize in one little YouTube video. In the hull breach ending of Don't Escape 3, we get the message, the rescue party from the UEFS Warsaw boarded the Horizon. They found no survivors. The ship's lab was completely destroyed. However, the Horizon's logs were more than enough to learn what happened. The whole ship was transported to a top-secret research facility known only as Sidereal Plexus 1. This might confirm that this is taking place in SP1. That certainly would make it easier to transport the ship, but it is interesting how quickly they seem to brush off the incident. It has this feeling of, oh, of course, the crystals got him. Case closed. If this wasn't some known recurring incident, you'd think they'd be more concerned. I don't believe in any of the games that we get to know exactly what UEFS stands for, but we do know that Horizon was the ship that we were on in Don't Escape 3, and that the UEFS Warsaw was the ship that was responding to our distress signal. So presumably when they came across the crazy amount of crystals that had killed everyone, they decided to cover it up, considering a big part of what Sidereal does is collect these crystals. In both Don't Escape 3 and Primal Sands, we get a scene of a character coughing up blood and one of these crystals. They're volatile little suckers, infecting people and multiplying within. The player and their crew worked for Sidereal and were sent to investigate the remains of the missing mining ship. Dr. Amanda Grodberg aboard the Horizon was also unable to identify the crystals. So this seems to confirm that Primal Sands takes place first. Their ship had an outbreak, which then took it offline. They were tracked down by the Horizon. This then had its own catastrophe, and we're now bringing in the Warsaw. Next, there are increased Shadow People sightings. Very directly the Shadow People of Deep Sleep. There's been a 200% increase in sightings by our traveling personnel. We now know that Sidereal Plexus is sending people into the deep sleep state as travelers. Sightings are more frequent with people who travel more often and who do more extended travels. Travelers who have only moved 2 or 3 times are starting to report sightings. Unlike the Shadow People that we seem to encounter in deep sleep, these ones observe and watch and even retreat if approached. Over 60% of the travelers that met them reported that it felt like if they were waiting for something. This idea of travelers has come up a few times now, both as the person we meet in the cell of deeper sleep and through Sidereal's own terminology when referring to sending the consciousness of their employees to other worlds. Guys, it's all coming together! Now I want to talk about the ending of your first playthrough of Don't Escape 4 and how that differs with a second playthrough. We've already laid out a lot of connections, but this is where things become really mind-bending. At the end of the game, we're finally able to make it to the secret facility with the rocket. It was all true. We're able to gear this one up, get it into space. If everything goes smoothly, land it, more or less, at one of Sidereal Plexus's bases. Here, Kate tells all. We learn that the Weekly Conspiracy was, in fact, pretty on the nose about all this. Sidereal Plexus learned through a deep sleep method they could transfer consciousnesses across time and space. More often than not, your mind simply ends up in your own body in an alternate reality, but on rare occasions you can end up in a different body, potentially with some level of memory merging. Through the floppy disk that we found, you can initiate a second awakening run of this game. You insert the floppy disk into the drive, boost the overall memory of the system, ensuring that some of your memories of this world are held intact. In our next run of the game, there will be semi-frequent occurrences of the characters feeling like they've met before, that it's not the first time they've experienced these events, they recognize locations, overall instances of deja vu. But the game also has randomized incidences across the 4 days. It could be locusts or gas, maybe bandits or thunderstorms. You've been projected into a different version of yourself in an alternate universe, an alternate reality. One where maybe giant spiders were created rather than a locust swarm. So things will seem familiar, but not entirely. The game even very specifically starts with David waking up saying that things seem familiar. Now, looking back, you can see that these Don't Escape games often start with the main character waking up. There's that recurring motif of wake up in the deep sleep games. Wake up. You have to wake up. These characters are consciousnesses being thrown into different bodies, with varying degrees of their memories still intact. But there are also these night folk. In the third game, Deepest Sleep, we learn that we are playing as a night folk. We also learn that we are invading the consciousness of other people. These shadow people are the traveling consciousnesses of real people. When they attack someone who is currently lucid dreaming, they're imposing themselves and taking over that person's body. Similar to what's happening with David and the rest of the crew, you could actually be invading an alternate version of your own body. You are instead forcing that person, their body, and consciousness to remain in the deep sleep reality while you are able to wake up in real life, probably in an entirely new universe. There are newspapers littered around deep sleep indicating that people have changed after comas, that their personalities have been swapped. There are repeated warnings scrawled over the wall that you're next. But there are other instances in the game that you yourself have been leaving yourself notes. You in fact might be warning yourself that you are coming to replace your consciousness. There is even a series of puzzles in Deepest Sleep that utilize little blue crystals, matching up with those seen in Don't Escape 3 and Primal Sands, and generally referenced numerous times directly by the documentation of Sidereal Plexus. They are used to power the technology needed for this traveling, and within the deep sleep state, are physically represented to aid in our navigation while playing as a night folk. Physically wielding these gems may give you a sense of how much further you're going to be able to travel. As I explained earlier, characters don't always remember they've been in a deep sleep once they wake up. They've left themselves warnings and hints and notes. You're next, you're coming for yourself, you just don't remember it. But there's still fragments of those old memories that you hang on to when you return to these worlds. Piecemeal, faded memories that create really strong feelings of deja vu. There's a goofy painting of a wolf in a snow that is said to look familiar. This again recurs in Deeper Sleep and in Don't Escape 4, always looking familiar. The lighthouse found at the end of Deep Sleep, used as a means of escape, is found as a painting in Don't Escape 4. It's often said that what we see in our dreams is based off of things we've seen or experienced in real life. But through examples like Cody's plushy tiger, we see that this is a weird two-way street. Things we see or have experienced in real life are affecting what we experience in the deep sleep. But how we choose to react to that in the sleep is affecting the outside world. Deepest Sleep has two possible endings. The first, where you make the decision to steal the body away of the person you've been stalking and make your escape. It is indicated that the chaos of this place will follow you up to the surface. But maybe that's not just mental trauma. These dream worlds and reality do interact in peculiar ways. Then, in an alternate ending, I hesitated, and I let the man go. The vicious cycle cannot continue. I will remain here forever. Here, in the deepest sleep. Seemingly, these night folk aren't so far gone that they're completely unaware of what they're doing. In some way, this particular shadow person knew the consequences of their actions and had a direct choice to make. There's repetition of sightings and locations, items, and more throughout the Deep Sleep series. While it's not always exactly the same, it seems to have some degree of repetitions. There's always a bell on this one desk that you can ring and nothing seems to happen. There's a traveler in a prison cell who claims to have seen us here before. And as the world's super quickest aside, because there's no further way to lace this together as far as I can tell, this identical sprite appears in the very short Scriptwelder game A Small Talk. A man who wakes up trapped on a spaceship. He quickly talks with the computer AI, learning that he is doomed to die. You can either take the escape pod and leave, or choose to die with the lonely AI. There's more sleep space than a similar sprite. I know of no other tie-ins to this larger series, but there's a chance that A Small Talk takes place within this world as well, so I figured I'd throw it in there. Sidereal Plexus is so big and prolific that they actually exist within the deep sleep world. People are frequenting this deep sleep reality over and over again, not fully understanding it or its consequences. During a first playthrough of the game, we will lose either Cody or Barry. There is one crucial moment in the game where you choose to save one of them, and unfortunately one of them will fall to their deaths. Upon a second playthrough of Don't Escape 4, after the second night, during your dream before the third day, the day in which either Barry or Cody would have died, you're visited by either Barry's dead wife Maggie or by Cody's missing tiger plushie. They're there to warn you and to tell you that there's ways that you can affect the next day. You are learning from your past memories and predicting potential outcomes. The fact that these are being taught to you through Maggie or a tiger don't really seem to come from your own mind. Maybe there has been a degree of mind melding that's happened already in the past. We don't know how many times we've gone through iterations of this event. Maybe we haven't remembered to bring the memory disk with us every single time, making the memories we hold on to less solid or less distinct. After this has all been explained to you for the first time in the many prophetic dreams that David has had, he now realizes he is asleep. And what happens when you know you're asleep? Yes, the shadow people come for you. Immediately one shows up and chases you out of the house until you're killed through a window as per usual, allowing David to wake up. You can actually choose to freeze instead and let the shadow person take over. When they catch you, you can see many projections of David's consciousness spill out. It casts aside all the previous occurrences of David that have now occupied this body. There's a weird layering together of consciousnesses that's going on here. It is suggested that infrequent travelers, people who are only on their second or third run, are starting to see shadow people. This is reflected very literally in Don't Escape 4, when the first time we see a shadow person would be on our second run. Now, that's our second run for ourselves playing, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's only the second time these characters have gone through these events. In fact, it's more likely they've gone through it dozens of times. The deal with the name Sidereal Plexus. Where is that coming from? What a strange choice, and what the hell is the symbol that they use? It's not an S or a P or anything immediately recognizable. Sidereal is something that is expressed in relation to the stars. So for example, sidereal time allows astronomers to easily locate celestial objects, or instead a sidereal day is a precise measurement of the length of one rotation of Earth, based in relation to the stars, which works out to about 4 minutes shy of 24 hours. It's slightly different from a stellar or solar day. Plexus comes from the Latin word for braid, and usually refers to networks of blood vessels or our nervous system. On their own, sidereal and plexus both sound like cool sci-fi terms. Together here, they appear to apply through ideas of intertwining celestial networks. We're all connected through an unseen network of time and space. Sidereal Plexus as a corporation has tapped into this network. Characters literally go to space in order to enter dreams and travel through a network of universes and worlds through those means. They all make sense thematically for the games, but the corporation seems to have taken other inspirations for the name. Bear with me for a minute here, because I'm going to have to lay out a few things first. In the study of Tantra Yoga, there is an idea of primary chakras. Vishuddhi is the 5th chakra, sometimes referred to as the throat chakra or Sidereal Plexus. Attempts to control this chakra are said to allow someone through deep meditation to merge with the cosmic mind, within which creation, preservation, and destruction of the universe resides. Mastery of the chakra is also said to provide a deep understanding of past, present, and future, same as our characters who are reliving these events. This all kind of connects with the more literal Sidereal Plexus interpretation I laid out, a unified network of time and space. Correctly meditating upon this chakra before sleeping is said to yield lucid dreams. It's on the nose there, I shouldn't have to lay that out any further. However, control of the chakra is said to bring with it risks of paranormal experiences, extrasensory perception, and precognition. Basically, you might see the future, but you're also going to get stalked by shadow people. There's a linking together of all these ideas that starts to tie together real phenomena like sleep paralysis, something I've experienced before where you wake up unable to move and have a visual hallucination of someone standing in the room with you, usually a dark figure with no real definition. It's terrifying. It's like literally the worst thing. But through these games, that idea is given meaning, and so much more. So that explains where Sidereal Plexus is coming from as a name, and their company slogan is no longer the usual corporate buzzword-based positive forward-thinking mission statement. It's actually quite literal. Deju, that 5th chakra, uses this Bija mantra symbol, which we might pronounce as Hung. So the symbol for this 5th chakra that is sometimes called Sidereal Plexus is the exact symbol that they chose to use for their company logo. Really, these ideas of lucid dreams and past, present, and future traveling through network of minds, this was clearly the basis of the company. The fact that they were able to start traveling around like this allowed them to encounter other more advanced universes and borrow technology from them. The world that we appear to live in is basically written off as a good place to test out moon experiments because they haven't come up with enough of their own good technology. On that Sidereal Plexus website, there's another top secret listing of new off-limit worlds. Worlds that are considered to be forbidden to travel for any reason. We have one where humanity is in a medieval-like era. Don't Escape 1 setting. Presumably, people were able to arrive there, realized technologically it didn't really have anything to offer, didn't want to waste valuable crystals, and decided to hike out of there. I'm sure an encounter with a werewolf or two would have been another great reason not to stick around. I needed a good place to bring this up, so I'm throwing it in here. One of the first things we find when we enter the house in Don't Escape 4 is a painting of this hut on the wall. Maybe whoever lived in this house worked for Sidereal and had visited this world themselves? So it's not that Don't Escape 1 takes place thousands of years sooner, it's simply a universe where the world never progressed technologically. The very next one listed is one with a worldwide pandemic of an unknown rage virus, which pretty much explains zombies on the nose. So we have another direct labeling for what we can assume is Don't Escape 2's world. Another with a worldwide ice age, which they suspect they may have caused through heat absorber panels, is something that we never directly encounter, but is maybe the icy world with the dog that we see repeatedly in all those paintings. There is a list of worlds where the lunar incident did in fact take place. They're kind of just doing this over and over again to many different moons, destroying many different universes in an effort to learn as much as possible. There's even one particular world where Sidereal Plexus was never established, and my theory here is this SP544 is actually the world that we live in as we're playing this game. It's very speculative, but I think it's kind of a cool little bit of headcanon. And there is SP23, which has been redacted. We see a note which is the same as the one we find in the game, but there's a tiny bit more detail here. Publicly, they've told everyone that they are mining for helium-3 as a front so that they can do their crazy lunar experiments. They are low on crystals. Crystals are what are being used to fuel all of this travel. This is referred to as synthesis preparation. There was another note talking about the fact that they think synthesis is unlikely to work. Sidereal is low on crystals, and they are experimenting on the moon to try and synthesize their own. At least that's what I'm taking away from it. What was so special about SP23? I want to know, but maybe I'm just being sucked in by the 23 enigma. Seems a little more likely. But on the other hand, there were 32 known worlds in which the lunar incident took place, and their front was to go to the moon to obtain helium-3. Possibly Scriptwelder was just messing around with the number 23, knowing full well that people who started digging into this were going to get obsessive and possibly sucked in by something so mundane. Even more likely, especially seeing as we have had such direct references to the worlds of Don't Escape 1 and 2, is that SP-23 is redacted because of what a colossal failure their mission was. This could be a world where the crystals were not handled with enough care, in Primal Sands and Don't Escape 3, or both. The events of Don't Escape 3 imply a massive cover-up. Perhaps they tried to bring this ship back to SP-1 and it all went to hell. Why not write that entirely out of their history and leave that classified? These crystals have multiplied and taken down 2 entire ships, and are now being collected and taken to SP-1. If that is the original universe, they were then either completely wiped out on Earth by the crystals, or this is them essentially first discovering the crystals, or based on their really unconcerned reaction, is just yet another casualty of these mining operations. These sleeper pods at the base simply house the body of these consciousnesses. When you're done in another universe and have collected the information you need, you could return to your own body here on the moon. If this body were destroyed, you would be trapped either in another body in another universe or within the deep sleep. My bit of speculation here is that the neutral night people are those who are working to seek out their own body and therefore leave you alone. If they are instead a stranded being, then they're a little more hostile. They're willing to take over anyone or anything. Now, what's the difference here? Why do travelers have physical bodies, while the night folk are just strange shadows? I believe what's happening here is that when you travel, you do exist in the deep sleep with your own body. The longer you spend in a deep sleep, the more of your mental capacity and sense of self that you begin to lose. That's why these travelers are here for only a brief time, and those who have been here too long go insane. Now, if your physical body in the real world that you traveled from is destroyed, you are stuck as just a shadow person. You're no longer experiencing an out-of-body experience with an astral projection of your own self. You are now simply a lost soul. Terminologies I'm borrowing from other series and franchises, but I think it helps paint a good picture here. In yet another seemingly unrelated Scriptwelder game, 400 Years, there is this relaxed atmosphere and experimental gameplay of forwarding through time to solve puzzles. At the very end of the game, there is a lone tombstone. Here lies a traveler between worlds, whose name is unknown. May his curious soul find a way home, like you have found his resting place. This is seemingly a real world, inhabited by regular villagers and people, not something existing in a dreamlike state. We don't see any night folk around. It appears that maybe this traveler got off centuries before their time, occupying a stranger's body with no way back. If it wasn't perfectly clear how far ahead this intricate storyline was planned out, this game immediately followed the first Deep Sleep back in 2013. A few final things I want to leave you guys with as I wrap up this video. The Don't Escape name made a lot of sense in those first 3 installments. The point is that you're trapping yourself in some way. It kind of goes against the crux of the series when Don't Escape 4 ends with us escaping to the moon. But a step further than that, you don't actually really ever escape. There are 2 possible endings here. The regular ending, where you climb into a sleeper pod and begin a new time loop where you have failed to escape the apocalypse. You're doomed to relive those 4 days over and over. In the true ending of the game, rather than escaping the apocalypse, we find an alternate universe where it never happened, thus removing the need to escape in the first place. It holds true to the series. Now, there may be more minor differences than I'm aware of, but if you choose to play the game for a 3rd time, during the sequence on the staircase where you're normally told how to save your friends, if everyone lived during that 2nd playthrough, Maggie and Cody's tiger are there together and will simply instruct you to focus on remembering your past lives in subsequent playthroughs. Essentially, they're working to guide you towards finding the 2nd floppy disk and obtaining the true ending. Something cool that can be seen in that true ending, Kate is researching David. If the apocalypse never happened, they would have never met, but she remembers David. This merging of their past memories is forever linking these 2 characters. So it's just kind of a positive note that in that particular universe, these 2 will find each other again. Even more heartwarming is that we seemingly witness Barry and Maggie together again, and them adopting Cody. Again, these characters are brought together across these worlds. There were 7 years between the release of Deep Sleep 1 and Don't Escape 4, with the Sidereal Plexus website existing as far back as February 2015, shortly after the release of Don't Escape 2. That is such an admirable amount of planning and such careful storytelling. I absolutely love it. As if Don't Escape 4 wasn't conceptually amazing enough, this incredible hidden story makes it potentially one of my all-time favorite games. My deepest thanks to patrons of the channel. I very much appreciate that support. If you guys don't have the money to give, then the easiest way you could support this channel at this time would be to head over to Steam and add the game Dead Estate to your wishlist. It is a top-down roguelike shooter with horror themes. There's a free online web version available to play now, and Two Left Thumbs is acting as a publisher, helping fund a full expansion of this game. I am so excited by that. You wishlisting it signals to Steam that people are excited about that game, and that goes a really long way to helping us get it in front of more people. I was super hesitant to take this video down and move it over. I'm glad I did because there was like 8 whole minutes of new stuff to add in, as well as correcting approximately 50 separate times where I had originally said Sidereal instead of Sidereal. So yeah, it was worth the effort to clean that up as well. So there you have it, guys, the fully laid out Scriptwelder Multiverse. I apologize if it was rambly at times. I spent a long time rearranging this to try and make sure things flowed logically. I think I managed to get there eventually, but I'm very happy with how all this came together. Researching it and fleshing out these ideas was crazy fun. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.